Hello, welcome to Wheelworks Make Do Create project. I'm Jenny, and I'll be taking you for the next few weeks to explore animation in its various forms, and hopefully you'll find out how easy it is to make your own. As with everything, let us start at the beginning. What is animation? Well, it's cartoons, right? Well, yeah, but you could say this is a cartoon, and that's not animation. No, it's like Disney movies and stuff. Yeah? What about all these other companies who do animation? What about animation in games? What about all the animating that goes into special effects? What about this text that's animated before the film has even started? What I'm getting at is animation isn't any one type of film or company, it's a whole art form which can be used in many ways for many purposes. But what is it? Well, to put it simply, animation creates the illusion of life. You're taking drawings and giving them movement, personality, emotion, and meaning that's completely different to what they'd be if they were merely one still image. This is why when we reanimate someone, we attempt to bring them back to life, or why when someone is especially expressive through their movements, we describe them as being animated. To put it technically, animation is a series of images in frames that are viewed in a fast sequence to give the illusion of movement. Our mind can only see and process things so fast, and it's the speed that the images are played together that creates the movement. Classical 2D animators would draw on pages that are lit underneath, which allows them to see their previous drawing, so they can draw their next one in the correct position. The animation will only work and flow smoothly if it's little adjustments made each time. The typical frame rate for movies is 24 frames per second, which means for every 1 second of footage, an animator could be doing up to 24 drawings, depending on the animation. This means 1 minute of footage could have taken 1,440 drawings. So let's say one perfect drawing is 10 minutes, and you have 24 to do 4 hours to draw 1 second. And that's with no mistakes and no breaks. And we've yet to do all the rest. No wonder it takes so long to make them. And yet, even today, with all the advances in technology, an animator's job is still complex and time consuming. So, why do it? Why spend a full work week making a character walk from here to there when you could just film someone do it in 5 seconds? Why choose animation? Animation isn't the story itself, but one of the ways in which you can tell it. Something strange happens where, when we're categorizing movies, animation sometimes falls into its own genre or even an exclusive age range. At an award show, you'll have the year's nominated movies in one category, and then, sort of off to the side, the animated movies as well. On Netflix, you might be looking for an old classic, but you'll have to go into the animation category to find theirs. I say this is weird because animation isn't a genre, it's a medium. Take these two, Ghost in the Shell and Blade Runner. One genre, two mediums. With both, the genre is science fiction, but the medium is animation and live action, respectively. Heck, even Ghost in the Shell and Ghost in the Shell. One genre, one story, two mediums, each with unique differences. One of the reasons we use animation as a medium is because it can bring any concept to life. You think it, you can make it. When making an animated film, you want the audience to believe what they are seeing, what the characters are thinking, what they're feeling, and to do this, you don't even have to be realistic. Animated characters can be pushed outside the limits of what real people can do, and while in the moment what you're experiencing is real for that character, our minds know that this is just a drawing and not real, so it's easier to accept all the crazy things that could happen to them. It's because of this that you also have to be selective in where and how you use it. Let's take Disney's Aladdin as an example. Disney has now released two versions of this story. The first, in 1992, was all traditional hand-drawn animation, and the second, in 2019, is carried by live actors and real sets and props. This scene from the remake is so far removed from the original I wouldn't recognize it if I saw it. Then when you see what's going on in the original scene, it makes sense. Obviously, you can't ask an actor to do this, because it's impossible, but why didn't they animate it? Because if they took Will Smith's face and popped his eyes and jaw like that, this upbeat dance number would soon turn into a horror movie. People can't and shouldn't be able to do something like that, so wisely they remixed this part. And so animation is especially good for creating abstract concepts or things that would be hard or impossible to create in real life.
So we've taken a small look as to how it's made and why we do it, so why not try our hand at creating something ourselves. This is just going to be something very simple and short, so you can follow on with no drawing talent required. We're going to follow the traditional method somewhat with a little 1 second flipbook style piece. And I know right now this doesn't look like a flipbook much, but I thought it would be better to flare out the paper a bit to make it easier to see. And remember, with flipbooks we want to keep all the drawings to the edge of the page so it doesn't get lost in the fold. So the little 1 second animation we're going to do is going to be a little character jumping up from the ground onto a ledge. So what I'm doing now is just drawing in the little ledge on all the pieces of paper. You saw a second earlier I had a little cheat sheet which could be helpful just to sort of map out what you're going to do and where you're going to go. When you're making an animation, you have to sort of consider what action you're going to choose and how much time you have to do it. So for 1 second, a little jump is quite enough. We can't really do anything more complex than that. Otherwise, we're going to need more frames, and that's cutting out more paper. So what I like to do in the beginning of any animation is map out where the character is going to start and end. That gives me a better idea of what I'm doing in the middle. So I'm just sort of imagining in my mind's eye and drawing down where he's going to start on the very first page, and then obviously where he's going to end on the very last page. As well as the start and end position, I'm also just sort of marking out the arc that the character is going to take for the jump. It just sort of, again, helps me visualize how it's going to take place. Creating animations doesn't just come naturally to everybody that's ever done it. You do have to learn how to animate, and it does take practice. There are some rules and principles you can follow to ensure that your animation looks its best though. The most well-known principles are by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson, who were two of Walt Disney's core animators, who introduced these 12 principles in their book, The Illusion of Life. I'm going to touch on the first two principles today, which are squash and stretch and anticipation. What I'm doing now is a bit of both of those principles actually, but it's more about the anticipation. So for the second page, the little circle, I'm drawing a little bit more of an oval, as if someone has pressed down on the little circle's head, as it were, to sort of flatten it out. And while this is squash, it's also anticipation, because he's sort of hunkering down and anticipating or getting ready, gearing up to make the initial jump. If we didn't apply this anticipation by squashing his body down, showing that visually, it would just kind of look like he's flying off attached to a pair of strings. There'd be no indication that the character is the one that's actually putting in the effort to make the jump, so that's why we show a bit of anticipation, and we're doing that with a squash. I'm just marking out in the very middle on page 6 is where I want the character to be at the highest point when they make their jump. It helps to have a midway point to aim to as well as an end point to aim to, I find. So when the character has finished the anticipation and has actually made the jump, that's where we're going to apply a lot of the stretch to show that they're moving at a fast pace and they've got a lot of velocity and power behind them. So we're going to make our little circle character more of an oval. Frames 3 and 4, since they're going to be in the middle of the jump, they're going to have a lot of stretch applied to them because they're moving at a fast rate. But once it gets to 5, 6 and 7, if 6 is the very top of the jump, the little character's going to be slowed down by that point. So 5 and 7 are almost going to be the same as 6 in terms of the shape of the character. It's going to go back to round because it's slowed down again. When we get to 8, it's going to start falling again and therefore start speeding back up. So we're going to apply that same stretch to show that it's falling faster. And then once it gets to the point where it's going to land, all of that force behind the falling speed is going to cause the little character to squash down again as it lands. So for the landing, we're going to draw the little circle, more of an oval, a flat oval again, sort of like the anticipation pose at the beginning. We're going to draw the little character as more of an oval again. Once it's landed and it's adjusted itself and it's stopped moving, it's going to sort of bounce back up again into that nice circle shape that's its original form, and the squash and stretch will not apply anymore since the character isn't moving. Right now this character is just a circle, so we're going to add some arms and legs and then a face. We can apply the squash and stretch to the limbs as well when the character is in the anticipation pose before jumping. The little legs are going to be bent, and then once the jump has been made, the arms are going to drag behind them. Once he reaches the highest point of the jump, his wee arms are going to go back to his sides, and as he falls down again, they're going to drag behind him, and knees are going to bend when he hits the ledge again. And then the arms are going to still be dragging behind him even though he's landed, just for a wee second as a little bit of follow through, as a bit of lag. After cleaning it up, I just sort of flip through it and you can see the little animated jump take place. We went through the first two principles of animation today, squash and stretch and anticipation. Hopefully that gave you an idea of some of the steps taken to make your animations more realistic. I'm going to leave you now with a little movie recommendation. Given what we talked about, I see it only fitting that I send you away with something to watch, and I think that movie should be Fantasia. It's got everything we talked about, like bringing inanimate objects to life, and also characters you know and recognise. It's uniquely paired with music and its storytelling, with some abstract scenes as well. It's a great one to showcase the endless capabilities of animation. While you're watching, I want you to see if you can notice any unique details to animation, something that you think maybe couldn't be pulled off in other mediums. Keep remembering about squash and stretch, see if you can spot some there. And keep making flipbooks, keep practicing drawings, keep the ideas alive in your head. I only did a 12 frame 1 second flipbook today, which was very simple. If you've got something you want to see bring to life, by all means get it on paper. We'll be coming back again next week to explore new animations, new ways in which it's used, new films, and of course 2 more principles to add to the 12. I'd like to remind you to subscribe to the Wheelworks YouTube channel and keep up to date with not only this series but the others that artists are putting up as well. If you've got any work to show, please send us an email. We'd love to see what you've been doing. Thanks so much. See you next week.